All right, you guys, thanks for coming to our April webinar. We're talking about, why don't you go back one more slide? We're talking about AI and how it's going to impact all of us a lot. Some of us may not have jobs in the future. Well, some of us will retire, but some of us, there may not be jobs like there were in the past, or maybe there will. I know we're going to hear what Joe has to say because he's given it a lot more thought and he works in the industry. And Kazim, his mind's all over the place. He's kind of like Skynet in a way. And so he also will have a lot of interesting opinions, I think, as well. Why don't you take the next slide? So Joe and I, as Joe mentioned, we met at a trade show, and I don't know, it was boring for me. So I was just bored. So I talked to anyone at any trade show. And we just started talking about AI and our futures. And that's where this came from. Kazim, I've known for years. He used to work for us as an engineer. He impressed me the first time I met him just by his encyclopedic knowledge of everything HVAC and controls. And so I just thought he'd be really good on this webinar, and I'm hoping he'll be here soon. All right, so then Joe, if you want to introduce yourself more, you can, and say what you do and all of that and why people should listen to you, and then you can jump right into it.
Sure, John, thanks. So I'm the Southeast Region Sales Manager for Automated Logic, and we're an OEM equipment manufacturer, DDC controls in Kennesaw, Georgia. I've been providing solutions in the built environment for 25 years, and I've walked some of the greatest facilities ever built, and I have a different perspective about the market that may or may not be valuable to your membership, but I think that our industry and our technology is right at the intersection of where AI and the built environment can really be realized to, the goal is to turn these buildings, I think, into rechargeable batteries, and can we monetize the recharging of those batteries? And so it's a really exciting time in the industry. And so hopefully, John, hopefully there's a few nuggets that I can share. I'm hoping to keep it an open conversation. When we were ideating around this topic area, we can go in so many different directions, and I'm hopeful that if anyone has any questions or we get anything, let's have a conversation. So Automated Logic, I support 14 states and 29 independent system integrators, our factory branch offices, and I'm fortunate to support our global strategic accounts team. So I have an opportunity to see projects at different levels and at different layers of development. So, but that's my bailiwick. I'm just a knuckle dragging sales guy trying to add value to our customers, and also. I think, remind our markets and remind our industry about the value of open protocol systems. I'm starting to see some interesting developments in the market that look like they might be trending towards some kind of a proprietary vendor lock-in. We'll see how things develop, but I think the market's smart enough to watch out for that. So, but that's me in a nutshell, John.
Good.
How do you want me to?
Let's go. Let's start.
So yeah, okay, so AI's impact. It is here. It is right now. AI is happening. I think if you ask 10 people in the industry how they would define AI, you'll come up with 10 different definitions. But we're seeing actively in the market individual sensors that are IoT sensors that have lightweight communication capabilities. Some of them even have solar powered power packs, and so lights, photo sensors, all kinds of field devices are now communicating directly to the cloud with no middleware required, no network, and in fact you're seeing it a lot in indoor air quality sensors and being able to transmit indoor air quality to a cloud platform, and we're seeing it across the spectrum. Some of the lighter weight, low power communication protocols are making it easier and convenient to push this data into the cloud. And in this industry, everything old is new again, if you can describe it a little more elegantly than they used to. In our world, DDC controls, direct digital controls, our frankly edge compute devices. Our edge, our DDC controllers, doesn't matter what brand it is, typically is going to hold that sequence of operations. It's going to be wired directly adjacent to mechanical equipment it's controlled, and all of that data can go up into the cloud. And what we're finding is that in the cloud, we have these massive data sets that can now be accessed not only for the stakeholders in that building, but can be shared across portfolios to inform better outcomes. And so, as we, drive, probably clumsily to the future, we're doing ADR, we're doing demand response. There's a challenge in the industry on how to shed load and how to bring things back on. And AI is helping us quantify those engineering constraints on the mechanical equipment and the electromechanical systems that are installed. So from a performance perspective, we're seeing a higher level of outcomes for our customers that's more technically accurate. So this is a ChatGPT image. I asked Chat to make this for me. It took about 20 seconds, and here it is. And then I had another one. What we're doing with all of this data that goes into the cloud is we're comparing that against other trend log data sets, and we're comparing the exact condition of all of the points of monitoring and control in the system. And then we can compare those to the other conditions that maybe generated an alarm event, or that through calculation or our algorithm is running inefficiently. And so, the autonomous sequence of controls that we still do at the, at the field level is now being done in the cloud, but with much larger data sets. And we're finding that our reset schedules are a lot finer. And how that's realized, like in the chilled water plant, we have algorithms that are constantly constantly assessing the total demand in the building, and we're constantly resetting the chilled water set points. And as we start resetting that and we trend and track all of the conditions in the building, we see if those resets are impacting energy in the direction we want to see it go. And if it's not going in that direction, then we stop resetting. And so all of these autonomous loops are being built, and it's really an exciting time. So I'm going to take a breath right there, and
I've got some questions about that for what you just said. So a few things. One is, assuming that you have buildings that are using this AI, that you're talking about, where we're constantly resetting the chill water supply temperature, or all these temperatures and all these set points and everything else, it means that all the programming algorithms that we have learned up to this date are really worthless. Is that true? And that there's no point in anyone even knowing them anymore, because these computers are just going to figure it out some other way. Is that correct?
Quite possibly. Yeah. Quite possibly, because the energy efficient operation of a chilled water plant, everybody's got a little nuance to their sequence. We start with guideline 36, and we look to the high performance sequences of operation advanced by ASHRAE. That's really our standard setting organization. And then every building's a little bit different, and it ages differently. I've been advocating for conductivity sensors on the chilled water plant loops forever, and it always gets value engineered out. I think it'd be really interesting to trend and track the water chemistry values in the central plant and compare that to chilled water efficiency or chiller plant efficiency over time. We suggest it on the front end, but we get value engineered out. I think now we're going to see a greater interest in greater point densities, because there's a curiosity to monitor more things that can consume and impact the efficient operation of these systems. So, we're going to be able to model your sequence in real time virtually and compare it to optimum operation.
Okay, so optimum operation, what that means, I think, is that all the set points are met, or the zone set points are met as much as is possible, because there's physical limitations. And then your optimized means you're using as little energy as possible. Is that correct? So that these AI systems are also looking at the power draw. There's not a model; it's just looking at power draw. But then what happens?
It looks at power draw. See,
Go
but
ahead.
it has to be informed by the use case of the building, and we know a couple things about the human condition, and we know that people want to be between 71 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 40 to 50% relative humidity, CO2 levels, not too much greater than outside air. And so, providing those ideal environmental conditions for the occupants, optimized for the use case. So kids test better when they're in air-conditioned classrooms.
Oh, sure.
And physicians make better decisions. I always tell the story about, my mom was a legal secretary, and she ran the office, and she was in a two-pipe system in downtown Chicago. And in those shoulder seasons, I remember clearly, Ma, how was your day today? And she, it was a sweatshop on the north side, but it was freezing on the south side. So, but that optimizing the environment so that people don't have to think about their temperature, they're just comfortable. And so let's control to that so that we can optimize the productivity of the people in the space, because that's so much more expensive than the energy. And then we start looking at, how do we optimize the mechanical equipment to deliver that?
And so, but what if you have, a system with, you have chillers and air handlers and RTUs and all kinds of just different stuff, and I mean, how can you really tell? It's like, if you change the chill water supply temperature, then you're gonna have to change the VAV, fan speed and stuff like that. And everything else is all counteracting, and it's all a complex web mess.
Yeah.
This AI is gonna be able to figure that out?
Yeah, like it's cool, and we're doing it right now today, all day, every day, and we've been doing it for a long time anyway, just through our traditional control sequences, and it's it's really detailed, but it's not all that complicated when you get into it. We have our air side, we have our our water side, we have our engineering limits on all of those subsystems, and if we AI is going to help us understand those engineering limits and know. We will capture the operating conditions of that equipment at installation, and AI is not going to let us deadhead pumps, or not going to let us overdrive, or attempt to meet flow rates that would cause a chiller to fail, or not load up. And once we get all of those engineering constraints baked into the automation system, now we're operating everything based on that source zone dependency. Let's look at where people are doing the work and identify administratively the ideal conditions. In the administrative offices, we want indoor office conditions. In the loading dock, we don't have to air condition the loading dock all that much unless it gets super, super hot outside. But there's other zones in the building and other zones in the space that you can let float a little bit. But the critical areas, let's control those for optimum, operation, and then let the other zones float. And so we, the roll up of all the zones inform the air handlers that feed the zones, and the roll up demand of all the air handlers informs the chilled water set points. And so from the zone to the air handler to the chiller plant, or from the least consuming zone to the massive mechanical system serving it, if we look at those relationships, we can start to quickly understand the limits within those different hierarchies and domains. And AI helps us figure all of it out quickly, easily, and sometimes with error. But yeah, and the visualizations are part of it. And so let me just, so with our organization, and I would imagine that this forward-looking ethos is similar with a lot of our competitive peer groups. We look at 4 different primary quadrants that we're building and investing and innovating in. I commented earlier about these lightweight communication protocols. MQTT is one of them, and it's really revealing its utility in the data center world. I've got a nice graphic later that I could show you how that works, but it's very lightweight. We establish a connection to a broker in the cloud, and we just push data to the broker. Anyone that wants to subscribe to that broker can do that without talking to us. They talk to the broker. So a lot of these lightweight protocols, and then the context of data is still being worked out. John, you may call one building's discharge air temp in the code.
Mhm.
Another programmer may call it DAT.
Right.
Another guy may call it discharge air and not even mention temperature or a T. And so that programming code defines the data point, and that data point registry, when it's defined that way, each definition means the same thing, but AI doesn't know that. And so we need to have some common definition and language for the context of what data means. And so that representation of context, the naming convention is very important. And so we advance open protocols. Haystack, Project Haystack is a great initiative to bring context to the data that comes out of our buildings. And then maybe the most significant context creator is probably BACnet. BACnet is the open communication protocol developed, advanced by ASHRAE. But BACnet is that authority that defines the objects and gets really into the hood, under the hood for mechanical systems. And BACnet has the standards and the ontology that our industry can build these massive AI solutions around. So context of data is very important.
This might be a little too in the weeds, though. A lot of the M&V people, at least I know, we're not controls programmers. We don't know all of this stuff. And I guess what might be more interesting is the effects of AI on us. People that program control. People who do commissioning, retro commissioning, M&V, building energy modeling. The energy. Go ahead. I might have just sabotaged your entire deal, but just keep going with what I just input.
Yeah, no, that's and so the outcomes is where it really matters. And what's interesting to me is how many of my peers, I ask them, hey, what's your exposure to AI? And they're like, I'm not quite ready to jump in yet. I haven't really looked at it. And it's go on ChatGPT, go on Perplexity. It looks just like a Google search bar. Ask it questions and you'll be amazed at what it comes back with. AI in our world, I've got Microsoft Teams at work. We've got the Copilot add-in, and I don't do much help desk anymore. We have our own work enclave that we've uploaded our content. And so inside Teams, we can chat with Copilot and ask it technical questions, and Copilot can reference all of our TI and help us answer that question, hopefully correctly. AI will tell you what you want, what it thinks you want to know.
That's true.
And you have to double check it. But in a real world, so AI is being used in real time in our company to answer questions and to, maybe validate assumptions. And it's great to help you, I think, structure things. And it's a good place to start, but it's not the end all be all. You really have to do some editing, and you really want to, take a look at, what Chat or Perplexity are coming out with. And I apologize, we do tend to get into the weeds with some of the technical stuff. At the end of the day, we're trying to help customers extend the life of their capital plan. We're trying to help clients extract as much value out of their mechanical systems and their control systems, but really, provide great environments for their people to do the work of what they do. And so we've come out with technologies and solutions that we think make it easy and convenient to do that. We're certainly not the only ones. We're kind of proud of our Abound AI platform. That's one of our cloud services. And, we scan and push all this data to the cloud. And then this huge Abound AI platform assesses and analyzes and compares all that data, compares how you're operating the building, what the sequences are against best practice. And then it'll come back with recommendations and encouragement to change this, do that, fix this, or you're heading towards an alarm event, or you're heading towards a breakdown. And so our Abound product does all of that, and we make it available. We've got dashboards and mobile tools. You can wear it on your wrist, or you can respond and react to real real things. It's kind of like FTD on steroids. Not only are we monitoring everything in the building, but we're telling you that you're heading towards a problem before the problem happens. And when we can trend and track and then reference all of that historical data, our recommendations get that much better. So it's a pretty virtuous loop, and it's amazing what we're able to, the savings that we're extracting out of the industry. And so and we're early in it. We're still figuring out applications and what makes sense for that end user. John, let me ask you, does this kind of a service being offered by the temperature control guys, what do you think of this?
So there's two approaches here. One approach is, and there's a lot of AI. I don't know if they're really AI, because other folks say they're not AI, but there's softwares where they start from the beginning, like I guess what you guys are doing, and there's other companies as well. I'm sure JCI and Siemens and everybody else has their AI product, which is basically a control system, and then maybe they don't write in the sequences of operations, and they let the AI just learn the building and just run the dang thing. But then there's also the whole, and then there's also the class of software where they just say, look, I don't care what software you got, we'll work with it. We just put our little box on top of your, by your workstation somewhere, and it will it'll figure everything out all by itself. It knows that DAT, SAT are both the same thing, and SUP, air, T is the same as well. And it'll figure all that out, and then it will, it'll start sending commands to your system. And so there's those folks too, and I don't know. I mean, I think the future is that for new buildings, people will be buying your stuff, and Johnson's and Siemens and Honeywell and all of that. But for retrofits, I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of ESCOs do rip out control systems, existing ones, and put in other ones. They do that, and so in that case, there might be AI. But sometimes they'll just say, no, the existing one's fine. Let's just add this level on top because it's not very expensive to put it on. And I think that there'll be a lot of that, at least in the for the ESCOs. I would think that would be an ECM they would do quite often. But I haven't seen a lot of it, but I haven't been seeing that many new performance contracts. So
we, when I first got in the business and I was calling on hospitals, those were real mechanics that were in those buildings, and those guys could tear down anything because they knew theory and they had the hands-on experience. And our we've got those highly competent guys here today, but there's just not enough of them, and the guys that have the highest skills, they're bored being a stationary engineer on occasion. And, so it's hard to get those guys to, stay put at the hospital, the healthcare facility, the campus. It's hard to keep your ninjas on staff, but I think this is the kind of product that would appeal to measurement and verification contractors, because, with this tool, you can put in a black box in the building, pick up all the points of monitoring control that might be there. And that's the other thing, is everybody talks to everybody else. The protocol wars are long gone. So you could, as a ESCO, as a M&V professional, you could overlay these types of services for your customers and provide, I'll go back to this command center concept. I think the building engineers and the operators, property managers, they still need confidence that, everything is working as it should. And they need the confidence that your industry provides them in, committing to the financial investment to make, to do the thing. And I think that's, we've, in my industry, we perceive the TAB, M&V, we perceive you guys as the smartest guys on the job site. You're putting it, you're setting everything in place. You're doing the flow, you're checking air flows, you're checking water flows, you're balancing and putting everything And once it's balanced and everything's tuned up and we've got a fully retro commissioned building, now we let it age and we let it operate, and everything can go into the cloud. And sometimes, we still need that discernment of a professional, and that's where the command center comes in. And whether that's us or it's you or some other service provider, we still need those professionals to keep us from blowing up the buildings.
That's now. So let's say five.
Right.
Okay. So I hear feedback, which means Kazim might be here. So 5 years from now, I am wondering, will there be any need for application engineers? And for those of you who don't know what application engineers are, at least certainly what I mean by them, are those are the guys who write all the control strategies and put them into new control systems. Will there be a need in 5 years? Will they have jobs, or will they be doing something else?
A little bit of both. They're going to be doing a lot of other stuff. We still need them, and we're still going to need them. A lot of our programming, a lot of the application engineering program, the boilerplate is there, and we need those smart guys for all the edge cases and the special cases. But even today, the actual work of it in our world is really functional performance testing in the field, and retro commissioning, and maybe adapting new systems into a building, and repurposing existing spaces, and you need that flexibility to be able to do that.
Yeah, let me interrupt here. So functional testing, again, this is a word that retro commissioning people know, maybe controls people, but maybe other M&V people don't know. That means functional testing is when you might go, you might say, what if it's 0 degrees outside? What do the outside air dampers do? Well, let's just tell the control system it's 0 degrees. Let's see what they do. And then someone's standing by the dampers to see what they do, and someone's standing by the EMS to see what does that do. That's what functional testing is. And so that's never going to go away, you think? You think that the AI cannot replace that? Because someone needs to, I guess, to verify that this stuff is actually doing what it thinks it's doing. But see, AI will be able to figure out, it'll be able to figure out, look, I opened a damper and nothing changed. And it will be able to figure out the damper's not working. It'll be able to figure that out, so you don't need a person, right?
Right. But one of the problems that we have right now is AI can tell me something's broken, and this is the impact of that failure. It can even tell me the energy penalty. I want to know what the cost of the energy penalty is, and I want to know what the repair cost is, and I want to know, what's the impact of not repairing it over what time frame. And so all of these statistical inferences are going to start guiding what we elect to invest in the building, and AI is going to get us closer and closer to, I think, the property managers will think, it's going to get us closer and closer to, making good use of our slim maintenance dollars. Do I spend $5 grand to replace the oil cooler if it only has a $50 a month energy penalty and everything else is working fine? Maybe I have to wait, a couple of months until we get more budget. And that's, part of the challenge is the property managers, they're budget constrained, and there's certain real estate, they buy to flip, and they don't buy to maintain or rebuild or remodel. So where are we catching that building in its ownership cycle and where it's at with capital? It could be.
Let's go back to retro commissioning, because one of the problems with performance contracting is they make this, they'll make this deal and say, look, we're going to install this stuff, we're going to save all this energy. And then the O&M staff go and they override half the controls or most of the controls. And then all of a sudden, all the control savings never happens, right? I mean, this is very common. And I think with AI, that problem could go away, because wouldn't AI be smart enough to say, oh, they overrode this, we're going to release it?
Bill came in at the outset. Steve was complaining in his cubicle. It was too hot. Bill went into the system, overrode the control program, forced the VAV 100% open. He manually closed the 5 other boxes around there, and then he drove the fan to 100%, and he blew a bunch of hot, and then he forgot to change it. That happens all the time. And AI is going to be able to tell you chapter, verse, energy impact, and yeah, Bill did that, and you started losing 12 cents a 12 cents a minute, or whatever the impact is. You'll be able to quantify that.
But that's not, I don't think that's as important, the quantification, because who's going to look at that? It's not the O&M staff. They don't care. They just want the guy not to complain. So, but I would think that the AI, what it would do is it'd say, oh, this override was done yesterday. Yeah, we're releasing it. I'm sorry, the override's gone. And we're going back to how it should be. We used to have this really cool economizer strategy. I don't know why, but they're now saying 0% outside air. Well, that's gone. We're going back to what's most optimal. And I would think that AI would just do it by itself without asking for permission. No?
Well, to an extent, we do it now, with sequences, and AI can absolutely make all of that happen if you've got those feedback loops and if the administrative, permissions have been granted. We see a lot of mission critical, and we have mechanisms built into our system to approve or not allow changes to the system, and there's a chain of custody there with modifications to the system. But if the owner wants to let us reset temperatures in classrooms or certain areas, let us go, and we do that now anyway. We we autonomously control the entire building to satisfy those space temperatures, and we do those night setbacks, and we're trying to save energy.
That's been done for like 30, 40 years, right?
Yeah.
So
and
that's
what
nothing.
AI does, nothing new with that, but if you're operating a portfolio, you could let AI run loose over your network, and AI will come back with some hopefully thoughtful recommendations on how you could, improve your system.
I don't buy that. I don't think recommendations is the answer, because no one's going to read them. Who's going to read them?
Well,
that's the problem.
The building engineer is going to have a dynamically transmitted alarm event. That alarm event is going to alert him to, an equipment failure or a degradation in efficiency or some other metric that they care about. So he gets that alarm and he looks at it in his mobile phone. He can act on it right then and there in the moment, and make the change the set point, override whatever, do whatever action that was informed by AI. Or he could say, hey, Monday through Friday, these hours, just let the system do its thing.
Look, I'm probably wrong, but my impression is that most O&M staff, they're unhappy. They're overworked. They can't get everything done. They're always bitched at. No one ever says you did a good job. They're pissed off, and they're looking for a better job. That's my impression of O&M staff. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's a lot of them. I just don't see people are going to be like, oh, you gave me these great recommendations to save energy. I'm going to go do that. That's great. I don't see it. I just don't see it. I don't think that. The only people who care about saving energy, it seems, are the ESCOs themselves or the clients who sign the contract, but then they go on and they're doing something else and they're not really worried about it because the ESCO's taking care of it. And so having recommendations isn't going to help anybody. I don't think. I think you need to control the building. And I would think that's what, if I was running an ESCO, I would want my control system to just, it's like, look, this is what I want, do it. And, they override stuff. We'll just give them a day and then we'll release the override after a day. They can override it again if they want, but they get a day.
Right.
And just do it. And I would think that's what you should do.
Yeah, and that's what we do with our command center. You should be the command center.
No.
You've got the trust of the owner, and they trust you to run the building. But nobody wants to run, what set points did you establish for the building? And then some people, 75 is way too warm for my spouse, and what you have is, I think you've got a dynamic where the people that are spending the money say, yeah, 75 degrees is good for our staff and our team, and that sounds good. But then the staff has a totally different opinion, and no one's happy. And you need to run everything, those higher. I mean, you want to save a lot of energy, turn off the chillers. Just shut them down.
That's right.
And that's not acceptable.
That's right.
So it's that balance in between, and to get. I think AI might help you, tell your story a little bit better, quicker, dynamically in the moment, maybe when the complaint comes in. Hey, a little bit of knowledge, maybe mitigate some of that concern.
Okay, so
But
let's
you're
get
right.
back.
Try finding. Yeah, in the thick of COVID, I met with the superintendent of a school district, and one of his recommendations to save money was to just remove the filters out of the air handlers, because he ran his residential unit without any filters. We suggested that might not be a good, something they would want to act on, but
No.
he didn't know any better. He's just trying to save money. So
Sure.
sometimes we have to save them from themselves.
Let's go back to.
John,
So
do you hear me?
I hear you. Wait, oh, that's
Awesome.
Kazim. Kazim's here. He's
No,
here.
good discussion there. I was just enjoying everything that you
Kazim.
are talking about.
Welcome,
We had
Kazim.
meet up here. Tyler helped to get me back here. So what I thought to Joe, when John is asking and kind of asking some of these questions, it does tell me there are a few inherent concerns we have, right, when it comes to AI to the extent it could go. If you think from John's perspective, he handles a lot of engineering manual work there, where you have very smart folks working with John and similar folks in the industry. They are very highly responsible for doing things that eventually gets to you folks as controls vendors and contractors to finally take that from initial vision of doing something good to really implementing and all that. And the maintenance staff, their attitudes and all that is one side of the coin, right? When it comes to AI and how John would see how his team members would be working, what kind of impact it will have. That's on the intellectual side, right? So AI can, in some form or fashion, supplement the work we do. And at the same time, if it gets way too advanced, it can essentially take away a lot of things that we do, whether it's OCR recognition of existing plans and whatnot. And if you were to think about how an engineer might have dedicated some time to go through all that, now it's being enabled by AI-enabled platforms to support some of that. That support portion is very good. But once it gets to a little more advanced stage, if there are more AI modules that are dedicated to be supporting or taking a much more increased role in that spectrum, then there is the trouble for the industry, right? And then goes the same with the crew at the site, right? If you were to think of your functional testing or a technician just looking at your filters, trying to swap those out, those could be robotics in the future, right? Maybe not 5 years from now, but 15, 25 years. By the time you and I we retired, that could be a very well a reality. So how do we go about it, right? To make sure we have some kind of blinders and not cause too much disruption of that nature. So those are the kind of concerns I think John does have. And you and I kind of chatted a little bit about things in the past, where a bond had kind of looked at quite a few things from IoT to other things, and it still has some limitations, right? Whether it's your platform or someone else's, there are, depending on the client, the marketplace. If you're in commercial life sciences, for example, it's much more mission critical, right? You got BSL labs. There is a high level of sensitivity to how things are done. And if you get into the federal spectrum, you got a lot more nuances to that, right? From cybersecurity to not being able to use your cloud, unless you're a FedRAMP or something, you still may have challenges getting there. So those I think are really, John, if you have any specific things you want to really ask us, and maybe just to get your thoughts out, and we'll try to address.
Well, the main thing I'm really concerned about is, that the people are doing M&V today. I mean, so I don't know, did you get a chance to look at that Watt Carbon, that Aristotle tool, Kazim?
I did. It's a nice.
Yeah, I just talked to the owner of the company yesterday, and I'm going to get him to do a webinar for us and explain what it does and all of that. But yeah, I mean, AI is going to, I think it's going to take away would think about, half of our jobs. That's what I think in M&V at least, in the next 10 years, maybe.
I'm curious, John, how is your, how are you guys, in your industry? How do you perceive manpower? Where are you at right now? Do you guys have enough technicians? Do you have all the techs you need? Can you hire all the techs you need when you need them?
Well, no, of course you can hire people, but they're often not very good. But
Right.
and that's how it always is. But then some of them maybe start not very good, and you train them, and they get pretty good. And
Right.
and we were talking about this earlier, Joe, before we got started. When you talk about, like, let's say bricklayers, and we have, Elon's robots are out there, they're going to be hauling all the bricks from the truck to wherever the bricklayer is placing the bricks, and eventually they're going to be mixing the concrete, and eventually they're going to take the place of the bricklayer. But even before they take the place of the bricklayer, if they're just hauling the bricks and mixing the concrete, there's no room for an apprentice. What's the apprentice going to do now? He has nothing to do. We just have a master and a bunch of robots, and that's what's going to happen in controls and in a lot of our fields, is that the lower levels where people are learning to become masters, those jobs are gone, and so no one will ever be able to become a master.
Try finding a master. I mean, we have a heck of a time. I mean, we can find technicians. We find great technicians, but we're not finding enough of them, and we don't find them, enough of them where we need them when we need them, because, we're still dealing with. I mean, we're contractors, and so the schedule, busy over here and slow over here, and
That's right.
balancing it out, and but it's a river of talent that's leaving our industry every month as our veterans are, they're retiring, they're slowing down, they're finding different things to do.
That's right.
Maybe the lack of need, maybe this technology is coming into the business at the right time, because it'll help us keep doing the business that we've been doing with far fewer people at the ready. We get these we get some great technicians, we get great candidates, and we bring them in and they like us and we like them, and we get into it and they do their thing, and we're like, hey, what do you think? And they're like, yeah, maybe not right now. And well, what do you want to do? I'm thinking the merchant marine. So
exactly.
These young people have so much that they can choose, and we want them to choose us because it's a cool industry, it's a good business. We're at the end of the day, we're saving the planet 1 kilowatt at a time, 1 square foot at a time by, developing these technologies. And I'll, Kazim, I will argue that, these AI platforms, like our Abound platform, we're crushing it. It goes in, it helps customers make better decisions, it saves them money, the ROI is there. So the guys that are investing in it now, they're enjoying the benefit of that today, and not having to wait for the technology to, catch up. I think the water's good. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No doubt about that. It's going to help in the current scenario when you're looking at, and whatever use case it may be, whether it's your customer, that's a data center, or you got a school district, or a federal government customer, or commercial customer. All these applications have its place in as long as it's compliant with whatever needed to be done, and there is a tangible benefit to having run all these. But at the same time, it's that other side of the human side of the industry where we like you mentioned, we are losing whether it's attrition or retirement. There are skilled people that are leaving the industry. We are not replacing as many at the pace we need to, and we are a much more spread out world now. We got a lot of sites, a lot of places. It's just not. I think it's from a application standpoint, the technology itself. These are all very, as you mentioned, it's a very perfect timing, good timing to be having all these. In fact, it will evolve more. Whether it's Siemens demand flow doing chiller plant, or yours Abound doing a whole other IoT things, there are benefits to it. Very quick ROI too, if it's done appropriately and priced correctly. But the bigger picture is where I think John's initial concerns were, and I keep thinking a lot about it too. How we how we really address, the skill set for people. For example, if I were to, I had opportunity to work on projects where we try to analyze and scale up things, right? So if you look at a federal government, fence to fence, you're talking about 300, 400 buildings. You're talking about smart meters at a granular level. If it's a 1 minute interval data, 300 some meters, you're talking of millions of lines of data.
Yeah.
There isn't much of a possibility for an individual to sit on spreadsheets and do things like
No.
that, right? You're talking about larger data sets, databases, and then that also tells us we need some other skill sets. A mechanical engineer may not be too good with Python or any programming languages that may be needed. A person who normally did simulation modeling might be able to do few buildings, but not all of them, right? So we tried
Mhm.
good few things where we even had other open source avenues to tap into to expand those, the analysis task and whatnot. But
Right.
if you think more about how it's getting concentrated under certain skill sets. The average mechanical engineer or a chemical engineer that entered into energy services industry, and have seen a lot of them, those that were not even from mechanical engineering background. Now, these are the kind of skill sets that people have, or their aptitude towards technologies, where some of them will really thrive and some of them will be in a lot of trouble because they can't catch up to those. So we'll have to really think from that perspective as to, but I agree with you. If you're finding short on skilled technicians, and we're talking about those kind of apprentices, we really need to dedicate more towards really educating them,
Absolutely.
training them. John, I think you did a great job with so many young people you have brought on board over the last 15, 20 years I've known you.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot you do in really upping that skill set. And I'm pretty sure Joe's team has similar culture there. And so is several other folks that I know of. But
So,
again, it's something, go ahead, John.
Kazim, what do you think? How is this going to affect M&V? Just AI in general. What's going to happen to a company like JCI or Honeywell or ESG or something like
Yeah,
that? Train.
see there, if you look at their overall business model for any ESCO for that matter, they are, well, of course, there are at least two distinct ones among them. One that may be uh, uh, kind of representing their own products, and one that could be more of a vendor agnostic kind of. So Joe's sister company would be one of those. But when you look at Johnson, they may have some other additional intake there, right? They got York and they got Metasys. There's quite a
Mhm.
few things they can supply as part of their thing. So M&V becomes and it still remains a very small portion of everything they do, even though it's very
Oh, sure.
significant item in terms of the compliances for any type of project, whether it's the state government, school district, or federal government, whether it's FEMP or IPMVP, whichever way you go. What I do believe, though, is when it comes to M&V, folks that were previously more hesitant towards option C might end up actually embracing it, given the level
Crazy.
of electrical signatures and the AI-driven
Mhm.
insights into that. I think that can
I,
really empower how you do M&V, and now
can see
will
that.
it impact some jobs?
I think
Certainly
you're right.
that will happen.
I think
That
you're
could
right.
happen a lot. But yeah, Joe, I didn't want to take the thunder from you, but if you have anything to chime in and let us know what you think, it's I think
No,
both
no,
sides of
it's
the
all
coin,
good
right?
stuff.
You like it, you don't like it.
Yeah, no, I was just looking at the time. I want to be respectful of everybody's time, and I know that we're getting close. I just wanted to get to this MQTT data flow, just to illustrate that, there's so many ways to get data out of the building automation. But John, John, I think the M&V industry is strong, and you guys are needed. And if you can wield field manpower, skilled labor, if you're the company that can actually show up and validate and test and prove, we need that. And the market needs that. And I think, the companies that can wield that skilled labor in the field are gonna, they're going to be successful in the future. but AI is going to make us all, there's not, it's all going to be transparent. You're not going to be able to hide too much in AI. And I think it's net, it's going to be a positive. And Kazim, we talked yesterday, and I know you've got, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, well, yeah, but just what AI is going to do is, and so there's I know on LinkedIn, Steve Cromer, kind of highlighted something about this Watt Carbon tool that just came out. It's an option C AI system, and it's going to pull in the data. I mean, this is what everybody wants. We sell option C M&V software. What everybody really wants is they want the bills to come in automatically. It does that. Well, it kind of does that, and it will do the models automatically. It'll produce the reports automatically. It'll do everything. Well, not everything. It will do a lot of this automatically. And I think that, I mean, it isn't doing some things. Like, I don't think it's recognizing, oh, we have a non-routine event, we need to make a non-routine adjustment. Oh, we'll do it this way. And here it is. So here's what your savings really is. And it's not doing that now. And I was suggesting that maybe he will choose to do that. And I don't know if he's going to, but someone will. And there will be software that will just get the data, make the models, notice when there's aberrations, the user has changed something. Well, we'll fix it. Okay, this is what your savings is. And so then all of a sudden, and it's all going to be real time. It'll be real time. Right. It'll be every 15 minutes. Right. And so, yeah, that's going to affect us quite a bit. And as Kazim said, people will, because it's so, let's say, ubiquitous, it's everywhere, that people are going to probably go more towards option C, M, and V rather than option A and B, which, is a lot less accurate in a lot of ways. And so it will automate the whole thing. And yes, there is value in having people who are skilled, just like there's value in having skilled furniture makers. But you know what? Everybody buys a Kia. So, it's just, I think that's where it's going.
Well, we have such a inventory of existing building stock, and that stock has to be repurposed and reformatted and reused. And, when I graduated from high school, there were 250 million people in this country, and now there's close to 340 million. It's a lot of people. 350 million. So, the markets keep growing, the demand keeps growing. There's a lot of technology debt in our existing building stock, and our industry, your industry, is going to have a lot of opportunity to help owners recapitalize, repurpose facilities. AI is going to help us figure that out. But one thing I want to mention, John, and I'll get off my soapbox. I know we're running a little bit long, and I just want to put a bow on this, because anybody that's on the call today, I'd like to challenge you to Google ChatGPT or Google Perplexity, look at those dashboards, and ask these same questions of the AI, and see what AI tells you about the future state, and see what AI comes back with, and then challenge AI on what it comes back with, and then see what it comes back with again. And start doing that enough, and you'll fall down the rabbit hole like I did. And wherever your interest lies, challenge the questions it gives you. But I challenge everybody on the call to do that, and start kicking around, and in this AI world.
So here's a question. So one, Steve's saying models provide context. So that's like these building simulation models, et cetera, or actually could be any kind of model. How do you does your software align with models? I mean, does your software do any modeling? Energy modeling in any way?
We do some modeling on the front end, so we can run an entire system in a virtualized environment, and we can do our functional performance testing in a virtual environment. We're not quite ready to release our commercial. Some of our other, my parent invests hundreds of millions of dollars in R&D, and we're a fairly big company. I'm not quite sure who's got everything going on. Our web control platform does have some simulation capabilities, and then within Abound, there's a lot of modeling that I know that they're working on, but they have not released yet.
Okay, leave it there. Yeah, so I think that Watt Carbon, as you know, Steve, does do models, because that's all it is a model. It's regression model.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's one. How do you define savings when you're, see, I can answer this question, but how do you define savings when you're promoting comfort and productivity first?
Well, we prioritize comfort and productivity because that's the most cost-effective measure that, it's not the building, it's the work that happens in the building. So we have to prioritize the human experience in the built environment. And there's a huge canon of study. The T.H. Chan School of Public Health at Harvard documented the impact of poor indoor air quality on cognitive performance. And we try to educate the owners on, what if all of your paralegals and legal secretaries are working, 6 hours a day under very uncomfortable, warm, humid, unbearable conditions. It's amazing how people get animated. I can't work in these conditions. So we do prioritize the human experience, and then we back into energy efficiency to deliver that human experience. So we say, that's a value decision by ownership. If it's a large distribution center, we're going to run it at 85 degrees. So that's part of it, and we hope that they quantify and value that the cognitive impact of the performance of the people, because there was a JLL metric that said you might spend $3 a year on energy per square foot, and you're going to spend $300 a year on maintaining, and then it's $300 a year, or, per square foot on the salary. So that's kind of where we're going with that.
Yeah. I mean, I used to write, or I wrote, let's say, specs for software, and it's not that hard to write a spec saying, look, you got to meet all these requirements, and once those requirements are met, okay, there's still a whole range of set points that will meet those requirements. I can have my chill water set point at this, or this, and all of those will meet the set point. I mean, meet the requirements for the zone temperatures. So once the requirements are set, then you can go and say, okay, which one's going to save the most money? And so, yeah, I don't think that's that hard. The cost of retrocommissioning.
Well, then the big impact.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention that we do have a lot of customers. They've got such a load. They're so close to the next rate tier that we give them alarms is that if they start getting close to that next rate tier in total KW, we start shedding load, and it doesn't matter comfort at all, because they've established, and that owner says under no circumstance can I hit that rate tier because it's so punishing. And so we do everything we can to avoid hitting that, and we'll shut down the chiller to avoid hitting that next gate.
Okay, here's a comment from someone. The cost of retrocommissioning will go down. The availability of the people to commission will level set. Hold on. And they will be focused on correcting issues rather than checking 10% of a system that may appear to be functioning. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
The cost will go down because it's going to be happening. A lot of it, the trend data analysis type stuff, will be happening automatically. I think the functional testing, a lot of that will be happening automatically. You don't need people in the field doing it. The point to point, and that's not happening automatically. But so yeah, so then you can, stuff still needs to get fixed, and maybe you can send the robots out there to go find the sensor and go calibrate it. Maybe you can do that, but that's going to be quite a while from now.
Yeah, and AI is going to tell you where to go, and we have systems now that test sequences and run dampers through that, and we create trend logs, and then we can find the outliers, and then those are the ones that we have to bring a ladder and get up into the ceiling and look at those boxes. So we're already doing that to an extent, and it'll keep getting more and more. The buildings will tell us what's wrong with them.
Okay, so here's another one. This is probably one for you also. Is there going to be another point or sensor for everyone in the building? Oh, JCI used to have one of these weird systems like this. For example, Mrs. Smith, the third grade teacher, enters in some set of data for how. This is such a bad interface. I'm sorry. Yeah. Mrs. Smith, the third grade teacher, enters in some set of data for how she likes her space. Then that's linked to the control system, and then another parameter for maintenance to determine if Mrs. Smith's point's okay to let her run that way or not. it's going to be more efficient. Or
Yeah.
yeah, but
Well,
that's
just easier to deploy and easier to train, and you know, the voting and the overrides, and you know, I think you're going to see more and more companies and institutions adopting this technology. We have it now, and you know, the occupant assistant apps and the integrations. It's getting easier and easier to synthesize the user experience in the built environment, and you know, bring your own phone, you know, bring your own device, and we'll give you a link and a logon and you know, permission, and you know, why can't we use our swipe card that we get into the building with? Let's tie it into the cafeteria and back charge you through payroll for lunch. And you know, there's all these great business outcomes that we're starting to ideate. And you know, the Slurpee, you know, the convenience store that sells the frozen drinks, maybe they tie into the point of sale register, and they find that when the Slurpee machine is broken and its outside air is not greater than 80 degrees, no one buys them, so let's not roll a truck. And we're going to start seeing, you know, those linkages start getting built between how do we want to operate the mechanical plant relative to the business mission, relative to, you know, the other metrics that management wants us to care about. AI is going to make connecting all of that and understanding the relationships a lot easier. Right now, it's hard for me to talk to point of sale systems. I think in 5 years, it won't be that tough.
okay. Here's another one. Another comment. I think there may always be a need for a human to say or interpret what the computer AI robot is doing and what it's supposed to do. Also to articulate to building occupants how the controls are working. Well, that's for sure. How the controls are working and programmed to work, and why we are shooting for certain set points and schedules. I don't know about that. If you've seen 2001, there wasn't a person to explain why. The robot explained why they were, you know, how the robot explained why they were doing what they were doing. I don't think you need a person. I don't. I think that it's going to become a more impersonal world that's just run by computers. But that's just me. I disagree with the
you know, good AI, and you know, yeah, do you even know that it's a computer? You know, do you even know that it's AI? You know?
Exactly.
Like, I got a great relationship with my customer service, you know, person, but you know,
okay, here's another one. Here's one. What about super simple systems like a school where each classroom has a unitary package system with a Pelican thermostat? Does AI actually make sense in this case? So just a simple school with a yeah, just a
possibly
maybe
you
even
know,
a trailer school.
if there's value in it, if you can network them, if they, you know, we think about I think AI is going to help us quantify life cycle cost better, and that's going to inform better decisions. Yeah, there's and you know, yeah. So.
Here's one. Kazim, you can jump in whenever you feel like it. So here's another one. It's this person's asking, what about data security? And don't tell me like, or I don't want to hear about all the ways that your company's securing data. But just I want a more general answer. But you know, the data security is a real thing because AI it wants everything. It wants everything. And you know, there are hackers in this world. And you know, I guess if you were a cutthroat business person, you could always hire hackers to go and make the competitors building. Why don't you just increase the, or I know, we'll decrease ventilation in the competitors building. We'll make sure that those people, their workers are really stupid, and we'll make sure there's never any ventilation. They're just going to work slow. They're all going to get sick, and the competitor is not going to do very well. I mean, you could do that, and so the question is, how's this AI going to work with all of that? Because it's always taking all the data and moving it back and forth, right? I mean, is the AI smarts in the cloud, or is the AI smarts is it local? I guess that's a question. Or is that
probably
depending on the system?
You know, you know, Uncle Sam is real serious about cyber and has been for a while. And you know, say what you will about, you know, the efficiency of government programs, but they really have done a great job with the standards around cyber and NIST and the RMF process. And I think the industry in total has really taken a great leap forward in strengthening and hardening our networks. Cyber has a different flavor based on the person and the use case. And we've learned a lot in the last 10 years on the whole cyber front. And, you know, operational technology, building automation technology is one enclave. And, you know, we don't collect any personal identifying information. And it's a huge discipline. There's a lot of expertise being developed in the cyber world. And you really have to think about a risk assessment. The risk assessment, you know, attempts to quantify your current state, where you're at. And well, the risk assessment also is, you know, what's the criticality of what's being controlled, and that's going to inform the risk assessment. And then the risk assessment informs the measures that need to be taken. So cyber is actually getting quite a bit of attention. There's always going to be the hackers. We're always trying to stay one step ahead. I learned, I never knew of this OWASP, OWASP. OWASP is referenced in a lot of government and cyber publications, and OWASP is like the, they come up with the top 10 every year of the top 10 cyber threats. And those are the most frequently occurring cyber threats. And then industry, you know, has visibility awareness, and then industry tries to, you know, correct for those threats. But it'll increasing, you know, first thing my 17-year-old son tries to do when we go to the dentist is hack into the web, you know, hack into the free, you know, the Wi-Fi. So, you know, and he's able to do it like half the time. I mean, these kids are all sharing.
I tried it here.
They're all little mini hackers.
I was unable. I tried really hard to hack into my own internet, and I couldn't do it. One thing I've learned, so I was, you know, at one point I was planning on starting a new career as a ethical hacker. And that means I get paid to go hack into people's companies and then find all their vulnerabilities and then tell them, look, this is what you need to do to fix everything. And what I've learned, because I'm not going to do it now, but is they just put out a new program, or at least a new training course. And now a lot of the tools are AI based, which means what used to take a lot of time now takes a little time. You can just say, okay, I want you to do this kind of attack, do this kind of attack, this kind of attack, this kind of attack, and report back to me, and I'll decide what I want to do. Whereas before you had to go and do them all. And so it's getting, So yeah, it's getting, just because they're aware does not mean that it's getting, it's just escalating.
Well,
okay,
it's a big thing. Cyber's no joke, and we need to be focused on it all the
Absolutely.
time. So yeah.
Someone said, what
John,
about
those
the
kind of scenarios?
Go ahead.
John,
Yes.
just to chime in, that kind of scenario you mentioned where a competition could try to hack in and make it discomfortable for others. Though I don't think there will be so much of interest for such hacking. And if we were to what Joe mentioned, these are all in certain silos. One system being impacted, it's not necessarily going to have a whole lot of impact on others. And with the kind of boundary conditions we would have, an event like that would be understood and notified, kind of. So there will be a pretty swift course against, addressing situations like that. But what Joe mentioned is pretty robust in terms of the cyber securities around anything to do with building systems, especially if the building has anything more mission critical. There's a lot more to it. It's not that easy for folks to be hacking in, and so yeah, you could be rest assured on that. You can continue to worry on the overall proliferation of AI and robotics and whatnot, but not so much on this front, I think.
I have a whole webinar on cyber. If you ever want to invite me back, we'd be happy to show you. There's a lot there.
Okay, so this one, another comment was, well, what about, there's nothing you can do about this, but what about, you have these old timers at these buildings that do O&M, they get this new AI system, and they think, oh, this is bull crap, and they just bypass it. I guess there's nothing you can do, right? There's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah, get closer with your customers, and do we really have a credible value proposition, or is everybody on autopilot? Things happen. People make bad decisions on occasion.
Well, ask any performance contractor. They know all about it. The O&M staff are sabotaging our work all the time. just the way it works.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I get Kazim. Do you have anything last to say? Any final thing?
No, this was great. I think we could have spent some more time on a few more of the implications of AI, more than
Yeah.
the benefits that we were looking at. But I think
Yeah.
it's still too early, John. But I do believe that give it another 15, 20 years, we may be at a very different landscape within our industry and other industries. So,
Oh my
so
gosh.
my recommendation for folks getting into this type of careers and whatnot to really hone in their skills to be uh, you know, capable of living through those kind of changes in the entire industry. But Joe, I congratulate you on your leap in the industry where Abound, I was a very strong proponent of it. Yasser and others may have
Yes.
had the opportunity to interact with me. So keep up your good work there. If you do get FedRAMP, let
Yes.
me know. And
Yeah.
John, hope you don't feel too terribly bad about where this AI can impact
Oh,
us at this point,
I
but it
don't.
is
No.
we'll have to.
Change is unsettling. That's how it is. I mean, that's just the nature of change, but that is the nature of life. Change. So,
Yeah.
you can't all be comfortable. So this, like, I had a final thought, and that is the AI. I mean, the robot that's coming out. Like Elon Musk has this. What is it, Optimum or Optimus robot? You've seen that,
Optimus, yeah.
Kazim, right? If someone gave you one, or you could buy for, let's say, if you could buy it for $10,000 and not, I think he said they're going to be 20 or 30,000. But if you can get one for $5,000, would you buy one, Kazim?
I might, John. That's a very bad thing about me. But again, not everyone would be me, right? But the problem there is the privacy and safety, right? Because it's a physical chunk of metal too, right? If you think about it.
Uh-huh.
So however much we may think about humanoid robots and something that could be of some assistance to us, be able to do a lot of things that we otherwise may be doing it manually. So there is a use case for a lot of these, but what can, like for example, if you're in a vehicle and the camera is constantly watching you, how comfortable are you
Yeah.
being in that state, right? If you turn off the camera,
Yeah.
you can't use their AI, right? So
Right. Or what if you had a robot and I'm your next door neighbor and I hate you and I am able to program your robot to kill you? Right.
geez,
And then
yeah.
he'll just
Right.
say, "Oh, the robot did it. I didn't do it. The robot did it." And
Yeah.
I mean, people could probably use them against you, right? Oof.
Well, I
Yeah.
don't see
Yeah.
we get that point, John, but accidental things are still quite feasible, right? If you think of what Elon says about his cars, they are a robot on wheel, right? And you have seen some instances where it had done a few incorrect driving and whatnot and caused things. But again, that's very few of those instances. But once we get to that point, I think we'll take a look at it. Maybe 10, 15 years from now, John, we'll see how these robotic things play out and what other regulations come about. We got Boston Dynamics already doing quite a few. One regulation that I'm seeing is they can't weaponize these robotic things except for police. And again, as you mentioned earlier, how about someone hacking into things? So there are going to be quite a few things to be fully looked into.
Yeah, that's
I
for
think it's
sure.
too early for us to really be too worried about it. But
No,
we got to keep an eye on it.
no, I think
Um,
I'd like to have a robot. I'd buy one because I want to, like, it'll dig ditches for me. I live out in the country, and so there's always a
yeah.
lot of manual labor. It's like, yeah, you can just go dig
I'd
that
get a
ditch for
robot.
a month. A month. Go dig for a month, and come back when it's done.
Absolutely. Well, can the robot do auto
Do
repair?
like that too, right?
Transmission. Keep that car going a long time. Kazim, I think you identify a lot of cautionary tales, and we do need to be careful. But I do think that the net, we're entering into an era of innovation and opportunity unlike anything we've seen before. AI is an enabler, and human ingenuity and innovation is going to leverage this technology. And it's exciting to think about what we're going to get done in the next 5 or 10 or 20 years. I think the future is bright. I think your industry is very important, and it's going to keep growing. And I don't think the robots are going to replace us all. I think that we have a lot of reason to be hopeful And I think that the future just keeps getting better and better. And we're going to try and make it that way. So, I think it's, I think it's a really good future state that we're growing into. And I'm excited to see what comes next.
Well, it's going to be
But
interesting.
John, I really appreciate you. I'm trying to do my cash and wrap.
Yes, it's time to go. It's time to go. We're way
what
over.
do you think? Are there any other questions?
I think we're done. That's it for questions.
Okay. Wow.
Great.
Guys,
Thanks
thank you so
everyone
much
for coming.
Really
Thank
cool.
you, everyone. Thanks, Kazim.
Thank you, John. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you,
Bye.
sir.
Talk to you all later.
All
Come
right.
back next month.